Have you ever felt like failure just truly means you're not good enough? Like, no matter how hard you try, you just keep falling short. And you sometimes even find yourself holding back from believing in the big things that you want to do with your life because you're afraid that you just might miss the mark again. And you're so tired of feeling disappointed and wondering if you really have the potential. But I want to tell you, today, we're going to talk about flipping your definition of failure on its head. Failure is not a sign to stop. It is not indication or proof that you're not on the right path. It actually is evidence that you're growing, that you're bold, that you're confident, that you are on your way to the feedback that you need. In fact, failure, not just one, but lots, are stepping stones on the pathway to success. If you think about Michael Jordan, J.K. Rowling, Walt Disney, what do they all have in common? They failed, and they didn't just fail, they failed massively over and over and over again. And they didn't just get over it and get past it and work through it. They actually leveraged it to create massive success. And so the thing that you might be most afraid of, failing, is actually the thing that's going to push you to your next level. And in today's episode, we're going to break down the power of failure, why it's not something to be avoided, why it's not your enemy, but how it is actually good to be celebrated and your greatest teacher. And by the end of today's episode, you will know exactly how to reframe failure, how to learn from it, and how to use it to fuel your success. Hey guys, it's Trish Blackwell, and you're listening to the Confidence Podcast. This is episode number 637, and I'm so glad you're here, whether you're a new listener or a returning one. You found the right show. You can count on me every Tuesday to show up with not just motivation. Motivation means nothing. It's just an emotion. I'm not here to rah-rah cheer you on. I'm here to change the level of your ability to believe in yourself, because that's what confidence is. I'm here to help you activate everything that you have within you so you can optimize your fullest potential. And the good news is what we're talking about today, the power of failure, is an episode that's going to give you exactly that. Failure is not the opposite of success. In fact, it's a crucial part of it. I know you've heard many of these famous quotes before, but I'm going to read them to you anyway, because we need repetition. Repetition creates mastery and acceptance. Thomas Edison said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Winston Churchill said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Robert F. Kennedy said, "Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly." Henry Ford, "Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently." I mean, honestly, guys, think about every failure you've had. If you are not a sensitive snowflake about it, if we look at it through the lens of feedback, of a necessary part of our development, and you look at it for feedback, you truly do then get back up and begin again more intelligently. In order to know what will work, you have to first know firsthand what won't work. I love this quote from Richard Branson. He says, "Do not be embarrassed by your failures. Learn from them and start again." Bill Gates, you guys, big names, right? I hope you see that if you fail a lot in life, if you mess up a lot, if it's taken you longer to get to the goal that you think, I hope you know you're in the company of giants. You're in the company of greatness. Bill Gates, "It's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failures." We have to look at the failures. Confucius, "Let's throw it back," said, "Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail." J.K. Rowling, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." And finally, Jack Canfield says, "Don't worry about failures. Worry about the chances you miss when you don't even try." So we're here to redefine failures and show you that you can change your relationship with failure in your life. I have done this work. I spent the majority of my life probably until the age 30, being very sensitive about failure. I was very conscientious about wanting to achieve, very high focused, achievement oriented. And while I would just fail and keep going, I would often beat myself up. I was often concerned about the perception of that. But the reality is that getting into entrepreneurship and having to try a million things to see what works, I had to, and thanks to a lot of really incredible mentors and some of the books I've read over the time and mentors who've directed me to those books, I realized that the key to my success as far as what I wanted for my life was that I needed to start by changing my relationship with failure. I wanted to over prepare. I wanted to know that I was good enough before I did things. But I learned, and actually through the sport of triathlon as well, in training for my first Ironman, I realized you will not achieve anything if you don't stretch the limits of what you think you can't do. So you don't know if you can do that marathon until you try and until you fail. And then you get back up and try again. I don't care how many times you fail. I'm more interested in how many times you rise, how many times you get back up, how many new ideas you show up for, how many resets you give yourself. But we don't just pretend the failure didn't happen. And instead, we look at the failure through the lens of neutrality and curiosity and say, what did I do well? What could I do better? And what will I do differently next time? For those of you who are in my coaching program, the College of Confidence, I ask those 3 questions all the time. Those are, we just call them the 3 questions. What did I do well? What could I do better? What will I do differently next time? If you ask those 3 questions, you'll have the feedback from every failure, from every setback that you need to catapult you forward. You see, failure through the lens when you're looking at it, the growth mindset is actually an optimizer. But if you don't do the reflection and the self-coaching to ask yourself those 3 questions, you're not going to get the growth. Instead of that, if you don't ask those 3 questions, what you will get is the same result over and over. And you will get discouraged, and you will get self-doubt. And those self-limiting thoughts of maybe I'm not made for this will feel louder and more believable. But when you look through the lens of the 3 questions, what did I do well? We have to self-validate. I showed up. I was brave. I was willing to do it. What could I do better? Well, the strategy I worked, or maybe I only went 80% in when I needed to go 100. And then what will I do differently next time? Here's my new strategy. And so that is how we take and reflect on a failure without meaning that it's something that's a flaw in us. The greatest successes in life come from a series of failures of people who are willing to keep going no matter what. And so these are the 3 questions. In fact, if you have my consistency growth tracker, this is the system that I follow. And in the 333 method, there is the 3 questions. If you want to follow my tracking system and use the tracking tool that I use, it's a Google spreadsheet that is absolutely revolutionized my consistency, my habits, my focus, and my ability to ask myself these 3 questions on a daily basis. You can find out more at trishblackwell.com/system. You'll find out and get access to that link there. But let's talk just for a moment why we fear failure. I want to normalize it's okay if you have been avoiding the risk of failure. There's fear of judgment. We're so afraid of what people might think. If we say, I'm writing a book and it's going to be a bestseller, and then nobody buys our book. And so we're so afraid of that potential failure that we don't even write the book. And so we stifle these great gifts that we have, these great passions, these big ideas, and we play small because we want to protect ourselves from the potential embarrassment of what someone may or may not think. And if you haven't yet listened to episode, it was 634 on how to feel embarrassed, how to walk through the risk of being embarrassed, that episode, once you're done with this episode, go and listen to that, because it's going to help you overcome this fear of what might they think if I'm a public failure, if that book doesn't succeed, if my first business efforts don't work. If I have to try 4 diets, 5 diets, 7 diets, and 3 different personal trainers until I get the weight loss that I want. I don't care. I don't care how many times you fail. I care how many times you get back up and show up. This is why I love the sport of snowboarding, because especially for my son, my daughter does more alpine racing. My son really likes freestyle. Freestyle being terrain park, jumps, rails, cool things, spins, 360s. And in order to master any kind of skill, this would be the same with any sort of performance sport, freestyle sport, gymnastics, ice skating, BMX riding, skateboarding. You gotta fall a lot. In order to get a 360 and to start landing it really well off of his jumps, he's got about 1,000 falls ahead of him. It's a numbers game. Every time you fall, you realize, ooh, I didn't turn my head enough. That's why the rotation stopped. Oh, I didn't bend my knees enough. Oh, I didn't time my entry onto that rail or that pipe well enough. I see. So he has to fail in order to succeed. And we can see that in others, but when it comes to our own lives, we're like, oh, but like, I don't want to write a book that no one reads. But what if you write that book that no one reads, and then you write your next one that no one reads, and then the third one is a breakaway success? The third one is a New York Times bestseller. Is the effort worth it? You see, we have to stay in a place of belief that our effort, our consistent, extraordinarily consistent effort in the ordinary things of showing up in the habits that will move our goals forward will pay off. I'm way less interested in you working hard in spurts and way more interested in your consistent effort. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Now, you might say, but like I like sprinting. You may not know this about me, but I was a Division I athlete and particularly a sprinter. So if you know me in the context of my 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, you think, well, she's an endurance athlete. She likes to run 10 miles on a Monday for fun. She has done an Ironman. Like, this is an endurance athlete. Please know, I was always a sprinter. Like in college, in training, like I was in the sprint group. And when I started doing endurance-based sports, my friends, my collegiate friends were like, wait, you're doing endurance? What? So if I can transition from spurts to consistency and endurance, you can too. It's a mindset. And the other thing I want you to give yourself some grace here. One of the reasons we are so failure avoidant and failure adverse is because society has conditioned us to, one, define failure through the wrong definition, through a fixed definition versus growth definition. But we're also conditioned to avoid failure at all costs because we're so concerned by what people think. But I think what really we need to do is change the conversation within your own mind and ask yourself, what are the consequences of avoiding failure? And even just for a moment, I want you to self-reflect and ask yourself, where am I avoiding the risk of failure? You might not think that you are. You might be subtly procrastinating on an idea and wondering why you never make time for it. That YouTube channel that you want to start, the TikTok or the Etsy shop that you've got this brilliant idea for. And you've been thinking about it and you're thinking about it, but you haven't taken action. Or the new job or the new career path or the different law firm you want to put your name in the hat for and work your way up to partnership. But so you might not openly realize that you're not taking action because you're avoiding the risk of failure, the risk of rejection, the risk of it not working. But often our procrastination, our delay is an expression of our fear that, well, I don't want to put all the effort in. What if I put all that effort in and it doesn't work? That thought, I didn't even realize I had that thought for a long time, but that thought held me back in so many areas of my life, and it holds so many of my students and my clients back. Don't let that thought hold you back. So is there an area of your life you've been waiting for a better time for? And are you actually waiting for a better time? Or are you afraid that if you put the effort in, it won't work? And I want to remind you that effort, consistent, true effort, not just a burst of effort of like, I'll try it. There's no trying. I'm committed or I'm not. Committed effort always pays off. And the consequences of avoiding failure, stagnation, missed opportunities, lack of growth. There's so much that's being held back from you because until you step into saying, I'm a person who goes after failure. In my group coaching program, the College of Confidence, and you can find out more if you're interested in getting mentored and coached by me, go to collegeofconfidence.com. But in that group, we actually celebrate our failures. We keep track of our failures as much as we keep track of our wins. I have a failure cheat sheet where we just track, hey, I went for this, it didn't work. So that we can start training our brain to say, I'm proud of that. Look at how I'm willing to be brave. Look at how I'm showing up. But more than that, look at what I'm learning as a result of my willingness to go for it, of my willingness to change my self-talk when I approach a new thing. And then my willingness to reflect and go, ooh, why didn't that work? Cool. It's not because I'm not capable. See, when we're asking those 3 questions I mentioned earlier, you're able to go, oh, this has nothing to do with my ability because I know fundamentally I'm capable of anything I set my mind to. My biggest challenge, our biggest challenge, is to keep our mind set. And so failure often gets people to give up because we go, I guess maybe I'm not capable. Your capability is unquestionable. Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. We have to stay in a place of belief that of course I can. So I'm going to set my belief and then look curiously about, gosh, why did that marketing thing not work? Why didn't I get that job? Why didn't I stand out? Why did I get rejected or not the person not say yes to me? Okay, cool. It's not because of me. It's because of how I showed up or my strategy. How do I change that? Because I have within me everything I need to achieve anything that I want, as long as I stay committed, proactive, and in a place of belief. Briefly, I know many of you know this, but like the most successful people in the world have massive failures before they succeed. So if you feel like you keep trying things and they keep not working, I want to say you're in good company. You are on your way. This is exactly what the path is supposed to look like. And this, like Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. Greatest basketball player of all time. Arguably, Kobe's up there. I like Curry too. J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, that little global phenomenon of a series, was a single mother living on welfare and rejected by 12 publishers. She's one of the most best-selling authors in history because she did not give up. Rejected 12 times. Aren't you glad she didn't give up? Walt Disney was fired for lack of imagination. His editor claimed he, quote, lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Do not let one thing that somebody says over you mean anything beyond just words. Just because somebody says it does not mean it's true about you. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first TV job. They said she was no good on TV. She's quite possibly the most famous female TV persona of all time. Thomas Edison famously failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Can you imagine if he hadn't kept going? So failure is so good. It builds resilience, adaptability. It invites you into a new level of self-awareness. And what it does is it opens your capacity into the self-reflective science of learning. And so one of the ways I want to invite you, I already gave you the tools of the 3 questions to ask yourself after every failure. And just to remind you, it's what did I do well? What could I do differently? Or what could I do better? What will I do differently next time? When we say, what will I do differently? We are already giving ourselves the decision. We are making the proactive decision that I'm not giving up. Like I'm already going to have the next time I try this. So what am I going to do differently? It's not a problem. Failure is not a problem. It's feedback. And so we can reframe failure as a stepping stone to say it is feedback, not a final result. And fail fast, you learn faster. And I want to invite you to, and so many of you, because you're listening, you're proactive, you're an achiever, you're a doer. I know that you know about a growth mindset. People with a growth mindset are obsessed with failure. They see failure as something to celebrate because it's an opportunity to learn at a whole new level. And not only just learn, but you're strengthening your ability to step outside of your comfort zone. And you're intensifying your persistence and your resilience. And then your commitment to show up and to keep getting up also deepens the why of whatever it is that you're pursuing, that book you're writing, that 7-figure business you're building, that trick you're learning on your snowboard, that language you're struggling to learn to become fluent in, whatever it is, the more you keep showing up, the more skin you have in the game. The more skin you have in the game, the higher the likelihood that you're not going to stop. The more committed you are, and the higher likelihood that is that you won't stop, the more predictable your success is. People who succeed are just the ones who don't stop. Don't let failure stop you. So here's some practical ways to embrace failure and to make sure that you start shifting from it being like, I'm so disappointed in myself. And you might, again, not realize that you've been avoiding failure. But I even want you to shift from not liking failure to going, I like it. And I have to remind myself this all the time. When something doesn't go the way I want, and I'm disappointed, I feel the emotion of disappointment, I process it. And then I remind myself it's a good thing that Trish 2.0, that this Trish, this growth mindset Trish loves to fail. I don't like how it feels right now. I'm a little bummed this didn't go differently, but this is good. And then I list out all the reasons why it's good. I remind myself. I often do this in my journal, but I often do it when I'm walking my dog. I walk my dog a few times a day, and I do it intentionally without any device, any phone, any distraction. And I let myself have these kinds of conversations with myself. And I say, why was this good for me? How will I make this good? Why am I proud of myself? So, one, if you have any big goals in your life, expect failure. Setbacks are part of the journey. Some of the best advice I was ever given in entrepreneurship was from my mentor, Sharon Robertson, very, very successful entrepreneur in the tech bubble. And she said to me when I was developing fitness apps and starting this podcast, and I was so overwhelmed. And I said, Sharon, I don't know. I don't know what's the right thing. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. And she said, I can remember we were in the gym together. I think we were on the Stairmaster when she said that. She goes, oh, babe, there's no failure. There's just consistency. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a whole bunch of spaghetti. We're going to throw it on the wall and we see what sticks. And this coming from a very, very highly successful entrepreneur made me go, wait, is it really that simple? She goes, oh, yeah, girl. Babe, we don't need all the noodles to stick. We only need a few. So when the noodle falls, who cares? The next one might stick. Keep throwing noodles on the wall until you find one that sticks. And so she taught me through that to be brave, to be willing to put myself out there, to expect failure, to expect noodles to fall. And that for them to not mean anything. There are supposed to be some noodles that don't stick. And there are supposed to be some ones that do. And so what we want to do is we have to expect failure. We have to reflect instead of dwelling. We have to then be willing to take more risks. The most successful people fail more often because they try more often. And you will be able to fail more often now that you have this perspective that failure, and the more I fail, the better I get, the faster I go, the more accelerated my path. Well, then bring on the failures. When you're not hesitant or self-protected about a potential failure, you will take more risks. More risks equal more results. And then I also want to invite you to surround yourself with growth-oriented people, because success stories are filled with failures, not perfection. To be around other people who are doing things in life, taking risks, thinking big, thinking outside of the box, stepping outside of their comfort zone. It's a lonely journey if you're the only one you know doing it. And if you find yourself like that, come and join me in my group coaching, the College of Confidence. We are a true community, and I truly get to know my students. You can find out more, as I said, collegeofconfidence.com. We have a 14-day money-back guarantee. When you join, you get access to absolutely every course I've ever done in the College of Confidence. We have between 6 and 10 live workshops every single month, and you coach live with me. And all those replays get pulled onto our private podcast. So it is an amazing, incredible community. We are going to close out with a few power phrases to get you going. And then I want you to go back and listen to episode 634, Feeling Embarrassed. And then I know I have done a couple episodes on failure. I will go back and find those and put those in the show notes. I've done one about 4 years ago and about 6 years ago, which is why I was like, it's time. It's time that we do another conversation about the power of failure. So first power phrase number 1, failing is proof that I'm daring to grow. Number 2, success is built on the foundation of failure. And then the top power phrase I want to invite you into is I like failure. It moves me forward to success. Guys, I'm so grateful that you are part of this podcast. If this podcast in any way has been encouraging to you, I ask of 2 things. Share it with a friend and leave a review. Make sure you're following the show, and I'll see you guys here on our next episode. Go out there today. Go be more of who God created you to be. Be you. Be free.